The book, Peril, the third in a trilogy about the Trump presidency, describes how a couple of days after the violence at the Capitol on January the 6th, the US chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Mark Milley, was genuinely fearful that the Chinese thought they could face an unprovoked attack ordered by the outgoing president, and might even consider a preemptive strike, potentially triggering a war. The book reveals how General Milley personally rang his Chinese counterpart to reassure him no attack was in prospect. But there was fear at home too. House Speaker and senior Democrat Nancy Pelosi rang General Milley, wanting to know whether Trump could demand an unjustified military strike and be obeyed, just days before President Biden was sworn in. The book describes how General Milley took it upon himself to tell officers at the National Military Command Center that no command to use nuclear weapons could be acted upon without reference to him first, whoever demanded it. The general has declined to comment on the revelations before he testifies before Congress. Well, I've been speaking with Robert Costa and Bob Woodward about their book and asked if Trump was a bigger threat to the US than President Nixon had been in the 1970s.
What we found surprising, actually stunning, is that General Milley was so worried about what Trump might do, some sort of military action, even use of nuclear weapons, because the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, had called Milley, and she was saying, how can we guarantee that President Trump is not going to use nuclear weapons? And Milley was saying, oh no, we have procedures. Then after the call, he realized that Trump could go rogue, because there were earlier experiences where Trump had signed orders without anybody else knowing in the National Security Council. And so Milley took action. I've written it down. He had this wonderful term, the absolute darkest moment of theoretical possibility, that his job was to make sure, if it was dark, if it was theoretically possible, that action was taken to protect the process.
Robert Costa, do you think the reason that Trump hasn't been touched, as it were, by the law enforcement people yet, we would call it hasn't had his collar felt, is simply because they daren't, because they dare not face the consequences of the wrath of Trump's supporters?
Inside the Republican Party, based on our reporting, there is certainly a reluctance to tangle with President Trump politically, to revive the events of January 6th and to contest him on election fraud. But there's not an appetite for a fight with him because he has political capital.
Well, it's very interesting, Robert, that you should say that, because today the Harvard-Harris poll shows Trump's approval ratings ahead of President Biden's for the first time. This man could be president again.
He very well could. And there are people around President Trump, like his former campaign manager, Brad Parscale, in the summer of this year, was privately telling others that President Trump wants to run again, that he's looking to run again. But most importantly, his motivation, Parscale told others, based on our reporting, if he runs again, is going to be vengeance. That's the motivating factor in many ways, according to people close to President Trump. And you see him now testing his own party, saying, you have to echo me on my election fraud claims. It's becoming not even a policy position. It's almost a cultural position you must have, at least in the eyes of President Trump, if you want to be part of what he sees as his party.
Bob Woodward, in your long life of political reporting, this is surely a terrifying moment, that in many ways the authorities dare not touch a person they believe has done much wrong in these last events.
There are investigations going on now. Trump is a former president. He does not have immunity from investigation or prosecution now. And as you cite that poll, Trump is out there. He sounds like Winston Churchill. Said, we are never going to give up. We are going to keep fighting. There is a war cadence to part of his presentation, and it's very appealing to people. And so the Trump story is not over as Trump becomes a candidate again now, which we think is going to happen. All those questions linger. What's his trigger point? What's the rationale for the candidacy?
This is not a story of just looking back. Peril remains for the American system, American democracy. But this is also a story not just of Trump, though it is certainly a Trump story in many ways. It's a story of the presidency, power, and how people use it.
And most specifically, I suppose, Biden, is he up to it?
This is a man who knows how to pull the strings, the levers of power, being in the Senate, 8 years as vice president under Obama. And you see this as someone who understands Washington, not an outsider like so many of our recent presidents, but still confronting quite a firestorm every day in a deeply divided nation.
Robert Costa, Bob Woodward, thank you both very warmly for talking to us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.